Not every NBA story is about glory, championships, and Hall of Fame careers. Some of them are dark, tragic, and almost unbelievable. And today, we are going to dive into one of the most shocking downfalls in basketball history, the story of Javaris Crittenton, a young man who had all the talent in the world and a clear path to success, but who ended up being remembered not for what he did on the court, but for a crime that destroyed his life forever. Imagine this for a moment. You are in your early 20s. You get drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. You wear the jersey of the legendary Los Angeles Lakers. You share the locker room with Kobe Bryant. You earn more money in a season than most people will see in a lifetime. And yet just a few years later, you are behind bars serving decades in prison for killing an innocent woman. How does something like that even happen? How do you go from being a celebrated prospect to a criminal headline? And what does this say about the thin line between dreams and nightmares in professional sports? That is the story we are going to tell today. And I want you to really think with me about how much of it was bad luck, how much was bad choices, and whether Javaris Crittenton ever truly had a chance to escape the environment that shaped him. Javaris Crittenton was born in Atlanta, Georgia, a city with a deep basketball culture, but also with neighborhoods marked by poverty, crime, and constant pressure. From a young age, he stood out as a prodigy, tall, fast, gifted with a natural feel for the game that made scouts and coaches pay attention. By the time he was in high school, he was a local legend, winning games almost single-handedly and catching the eye of recruiters from all over the country. He eventually committed to Georgia Tech, where he quickly showed flashes of being something special, a point guard with size and athleticism that fit perfectly with the NBA's future. The Lakers took him in the first round of the 2007 draft, a dream come true for a kid from Atlanta who had grown up watching stars on TV. Think about that for a second. One day, you are just a teenager walking the streets of Atlanta. The next, you are walking into Staples Center to share the floor with Kobe Bryant and a championship-caliber roster. For many, that would be enough to stay disciplined, to stay focused, to do whatever it takes to protect the opportunity of a lifetime. But here's the question that makes this story so compelling and tragic. What happens when the fame and the money arrive faster than the maturity? When you carry with you habits, influences, and connections from the past that do not just disappear when you put on an NBA jersey. This is where the story of Javaris Crittenton takes its first dangerous turns, and where the seeds of his downfall were quietly planted even before the world saw him as an NBA player. Crittenton's NBA career started with promise, but quickly revealed cracks. Drafted by the Lakers in 2007, he was part of a team that had sky-high expectations and featured one of the greatest competitors in basketball history, Kobe Bryant. Yet, instead of thriving under the pressure, Crittenton found himself struggling to adapt. Minutes were scarce, mistakes felt magnified, and the pace of the league seemed overwhelming. After just a few months, he was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies as part of the blockbuster deal that brought Pau Gasol to Los Angeles, a move that altered the course of NBA history for the Lakers, but left Crittenton in a new city trying to prove himself. The Grizzlies offered him more playing time, but inconsistency plagued his game. Then came another trade, this time to the Washington Wizards, where his career took a turn, not just on the court, but in the headlines. This is where the infamous locker room gun incident occurred in 2009, when Crittenton and Gilbert Arenas brought firearms into the team facility after a gambling dispute. Imagine that, two professional athletes in one of the most high-profile sports in America turning a disagreement into a standoff that could have ended in tragedy. It was one of the biggest scandals of the decade, and while Arenas took most of the media spotlight, Crittenton's reputation never recovered. The NBA suspended him for the rest of the season, and in a league where reputations matter almost as much as performance, he was marked as trouble. At this point, you have to ask yourself, how much of this was immaturity and bad judgment, and how much was the pull of his background, the connections and attitudes he had carried from Atlanta? Could he have escaped that cycle if he had handled things differently, or was he already on a path that felt almost inevitable? After the suspension, Crittenton's NBA career was effectively over. He attempted comebacks, including a brief stint with the Charlotte Bobcats and a few opportunities in the D-League, but no team truly trusted him. His talent was undeniable, yet the baggage was too heavy. From there, his life outside the NBA began to spiral. Returning to Atlanta, he fell deeper into old associations, reconnecting with people tied to street culture and gangs. The discipline and structure of professional basketball had been stripped away, and without that foundation, the darker influences of his environment pulled him back in. By 2011, he was no longer remembered as the young point guard drafted by the Lakers, but instead as a man facing serious allegations. That summer, tragedy struck when a young mother named Julian Jones was shot and killed in Atlanta. Police quickly named Crittenton as the primary suspect, claiming the shooting was targeted at rival gang members, but tragically struck an innocent woman instead. The story was shocking, not just because of the crime itself, but because of who was accused. How does someone go from sharing a locker room with Kobe Bryant to being charged with murder in just a few short years? Was it the crushing pressure of failure, the lure of easy money and dangerous associations, or something deeper about the challenges athletes face when their careers end too soon? For many fans, it felt like watching a slow-motion collapse, a promising future consumed by choices and circumstances that led to devastating consequences. Crittenton went on the run after the shooting, turning what was already a shocking headline into a national manhunt. For days, the media tracked his movements, speculating on where he might be hiding and whether he would ever turn himself in. Eventually, he was captured by the FBI in California, far from the streets of Atlanta where everything began. The fall from NBA player to fugitive felt surreal, like something out of a movie, yet it was all too real. In 2015, he accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter and aggravated assault with a weapon. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Just think about that number for a moment. 23 years is nearly the length of an entire NBA career, but instead of chasing championships or building a legacy on the court, Crittenton would spend it behind bars. The story shook fans and players alike because it was a brutal reminder of how quickly everything can unravel. How does someone blessed with such rare talent, given the opportunity to live out every basketball player's dream, end up in a prison cell for taking another person's life? Was it simply a matter of personal choices? Or does this also expose how the NBA and society at large fail to prepare young athletes for the realities beyond the game? Today, Javaris Crittenton remains in prison, his name almost forgotten by the broader NBA community. Yet his story continues to resurface whenever discussions turn to wasted potential and the dangers that can accompany sudden fame and money. It is not just the tale of one man's downfall, but also a cautionary narrative about how fragile success can be when personal demons and poor decisions are left unchecked. His case forces us to ask deeper questions. How well does the NBA support young athletes coming from difficult backgrounds who suddenly find themselves with wealth and notoriety? How much responsibility lies with the individual, and how much with the system that profits from their talent? Stories like this resonate because they tap into something bigger than basketball. They show us the thin line between triumph and tragedy, and how a single choice can alter the course of many lives forever. And with that in mind, make sure you subscribe to the channel because here we uncover the hidden side of the NBA. And if you want more insight into scandals, breakdowns, and stories the league wishes you would forget, you will not want to miss what is coming next. If you found this story about Javaris Crittenton eye-opening, there is even more to explore on this channel. From locker room scandals to shocking incidents that changed the league forever, every episode dives deep into the drama and psychology behind the NBA's most unforgettable moments. And remember, these stories are not just about players. They are about communities, fans, and the ripple effects that shape the game we love. So if you want to stay ahead and never miss a breakdown of the NBA's darkest chapters, hit that subscribe button right now and join us behind the backboard, where the real game begins when the spotlight fades.